Ladies and gentlemen, this is internet personality Vangelus, here with a review provided by fellow YouTube user DNL2906. I don't actually know what that stands for. Something like Donut Land 2906. I guess in the future, in like 900 years, we're gonna... Anyway, we'll be checking out Transformers Prime's Deluxe Jackie, the Wheeljack of Prid's debut wave. Light up your ears and join me as we begin with his car mode. The slick lines of Jackie's sports car mode rub me in every right way. From a top-down view, it's practically perfect to me, though it gets a bit gappy when you look at it directly from the front or rear. I really like the colors between the blanched white plastic and sharp paint apps. I think that the gray venting, silver hubcaps, and rear lights make Wheeljack's vehicle palette feel complete enough for a retail deluxe. He also rolls really well for a car that's got two blades beneath his chassis. Blades under his chassis, you say? What's next? Cars and cats and dogs sleeping together and having a crazy world of cars and cat-dog children? Yes, because there are swords under here. And I am impressed that they are able to sit under there and still give clearance for some of this kind of action. The way they peg in is literally like this. Like they peg onto pegs. I know, surprise, surprise. You're also able to stick them onto the outer rear parts of the car if you want, in either direction really, so you can have him all set up to like just sideswipe dudes and do drive-by decapitations. There is also an official, I don't know what to call this mode. It uses the same storage pegs as the undercarriage storage for these things. And you pretty much get this really, really subtle attack mode, where, literally, if he was going to try to run a dude over, like if he saw this Stormtrooper and was like, "Yo, Stormtrooper, I hate you," and the Stormtrooper was standing his legs just a little bit closer together, he'd miss completely. Like, you'd have to be a pretty wide dude, or Jackie here would have to use some pretty decent precision and, like, you know, drive up and poke Fordo in the chest like that. This thing's, like, incredibly silly, but for some reason, that makes me sort of like it. It's goofy. I don't know if I really want to see it show up in the TV show at all. But, hey, guess what? You can have a sports car with giant swords sticking out of the front, and, you know, that's when you know you're living the life. Being an excellent representation of Prime RID's stated intention of easy and intuitive transformation, Wheeljack hits a good balance between quickness and, quote-unquote, parts moving around. Touches like the multiple folds of his shin conversion help the process feel satisfying despite being incredibly simple at its core. Similar moments include the rotating hand reveal, or his very cleverly hidden Wheeljack wings, as well as a head-revealing automorph that is so subtle some don't even consider it to be a head-reveal automorph. This figure alone made me look at the people decrying the first wave of Prime RID as trash across the board, and slowly shake my head. While there are questionable figures in there, maybe called Bumblebee, Wheeljack's robot mode is so close to the show model I had to triple-check HD screen caps as I kept finding further similarities. Liberties are taken with his wings and a few inner panels, but he is generally spot on. I am cool with the decision to go with his battle mask slid into place, as it helps in making him look like a badass rogue warrior, ready for battle. And it looks more G1, helps him cheat to win the 2012 Hall of Fame nomination thing, blah blah blah. I do wish his arms were a bit shorter, but the proportions are quite in line with his CG model. Also, his light piping is woefully lacking. I'm trying my best here, come on man. Alright, you're looking at his gorilla arms. You just really can't handle this. This robot's arms are long. It's ruining your day. You can't concentrate at work. You're snapping at your loved ones. Here, let me cure cancer. There. This is an easy fix you can do if you really can't handle the way that these arms look. Just fold up the shoulders like that, and boom. Slightly less posability, but it looks different. And it looks a bit shorter, it looks a bit blockier. If you really need to somehow fuse that blockiness into his shoulders, then... ladies and gentlemen, I just solved your problems. You can, pay me anytime. Wheeljack is armed with a boss pair of choppin' blades. These swords are not at all floppy and have some neat inscriptions upon their delicious silver paint that I cannot read at all. You can store the swords on Wheeljack's shoulders, but they look best in the sheath-like openings in his backpack. Slip it on in. Hall of Fame 2012 winner, Fans' Choice, Jackie the Wheeljack. The cheater. That aside, he also has some pretty good posability, which I guess is respectable, even though he had to cheat to get in the Hall of Fame. He's got a lot of good stuff, but two missing things, and I'm going to tell you what's missing right off the bat. He has no bicep swivels, and he has no waist joint. However, everything else he does, I think, is pretty good. His ball-jointed head has a really nice amount of range for something that's so deeply set inside his collar. His shoulders are kind of strangely multi-jointed. This one gets a little bit stuck now and then, but there's a ball joint with a side-to-side hinge, and then there's an elbow joint, and then there's this other transformation joint, which works kind of like a second elbow joint if you imagine that his entire bicep is actually an elbow. Visually, it actually kind of works, because it means that you can get him to almost reach over and grab the sword from his own sheath. He can't quite reach it, though, so maybe if he could have legitimately won his place in the Transformers Hall of Fame at BotCon this year. He's also got wrist joints. They're on a bit of a ball swivel with a built-in hinge. I kind of wish the hinge went this way so he could point his swords forward, but this is mostly for the transformation, and it does let him still do some cool stuff with his cool Drifto katana blades. He has no waist joint, as I mentioned before. It's all just rigid and solid in there, and I'm not sure if a waist joint could have fit in there. It feels like if things were messed with a bit aesthetically, they could have plugged one in, but then that would have maybe not been as on model. He does have ball-jointed hips with a full range of motion as well as a thigh swivel. His knees are only single-jointed, but get a really nice, deep, full range out of that single joint, which makes me okay with it. It is kind of easy to flip this while you're messing with his legs, but it flips back. He has these kneecap things that they're supposed to be forward, but they move around when you're posing the legs, and they don't really move back into place all that easily, so if you're anal retentive, you may end up flicking them down constantly. He's also got ball-jointed ankles with a very decent amount of tiltage, so while this guy does not have every joint under the sun, the joints he does have are actually all really well done, I think. He's able to do the more poses, especially given the way his arms look. At first glance, he might look like, oh, I don't know how much range you're going to get out of those. You get a decent amount out of this guy. If he had bicep swivels, I think that he would be even more high tier in the posability department, but as he is, I find him very satisfying for a deluxe toy, and I gotta give him, a nice solid A. Minus. Friggin' cheater. I'm not bitter, though. Oh, whoops! Sorry about that. Sorry, buddy. Here, let me pick you up. Oh, sorry about that. Oh, you fell down. Hey, let's talk about something else. Jackie's ended up being the star of Prid Wave 1 to me. Every aspect of this figure hits solidly as a deluxe transformer. His car mode is solid, his transformation is interesting and fun, his robot mode evokes the character while remaining decently playable. He doesn't astound so much as he does deliver the meat and potatoes of what I like in a robot of his price point. Unless you can't stand his aesthetic, or you really can't stand the way he cheated his way into the Hall of Fame, I'd really recommend giving Wheeljack a shot. Anyway, this has been Internet Personality Vangelus, and I hope this video has assisted you in both wrecking and ruling. And even if you do hold it against this guy that he cheated his way into the Hall of Fame, I'd still pick him up. I mean, throw him a bone. In 3 years, when people realize what a sham he is, he'll come crawling to you, he'll think you're his only friend, and then you can just take advantage of him. In all kinds of ways. Thank you, DNL2906. I'm gonna have some fun in 3 years.